Hello everyone and welcome back to Cine 103, History of Motion Pictures, beginning to 1945, and we are up to Class 4. And in Class 4, we are still in the silent era, actually our last class in the silent era, and we're going to cover some European films, see what they're doing in Germany with vampire movies like Nosferatu. We're going to see what they're doing in Russia with the new montage, and some other real landmark films that don't really fit in a genre like musicals or film noir or anything like that, and aren't covered in the Movie Stars and Moguls documentary. So this is a grab bag of wonderful work from the 1920s. So let's dive in. Starting off with the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1920. Actually, it was 1919 in Germany, and we got it here in the US in 1920. It is directed by Robert Wien, I believe it would be in German. And as you can see, it has very odd sets. This is supposed to be outside, and that's a street lamp, and he's walking down the street. But it's very exaggerated, it's very expressive, and thus the name German Expressionism. This is really a one-of-a-kind film. I don't think there's ever been a film really like it ever again. It was very influential, but nobody else tried to copy it. It was influential on the film noir. I see a lot of influence on Dr. Seuss. I see a lot of influence on Tim Burton, and poster art, illustration, just all over the place. This is a very influential film, but it is really a one-of-a-kind. Now, when we, I think I've got, the entire film is online. Now, you don't have to watch the entire film. You can jump around and look at it. You will notice that some of the scenes have color on them, not the regular color that we're expecting, but the kind of color that we talked about with the bath process. Some would be blue and I think rose or pink in another couple of scenes. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not crazy about the music that they chose for the film. I'm sure it's very close to the music that was original, that was played in theaters and things like that for the film. But if I were watching it, I would maybe put on my own music. It's not my favorite kind of music. Let's just put it that way. So you can turn the volume down or play your own music or whatever and watch the film. I think it might be more fun that way. So this is Expressionism. We have painted shadows, distorted landscapes, and that is because the person telling the story is what they used to call mad. Today we would say he is has mental illness of some sort, but back then they would say that he was in the madhouse or the insane asylum or something like that. We wouldn't say anything like that today. But the idea is we're sort of seeing things through his eyes, and since he has a distorted outlook, we are getting his story, and he's telling it to us in the first person. The opening scene of the movie, we see him outside, kind of in a garden, talking to somebody and telling about the awful, amazing, horrific events that befell him and his friend and his girlfriend. And then at the end of the film, sorry, spoiler alert, at the end of the film, we find out that he is in a mental institution, and the mad Dr. Caligari right here is his actual doctor, and so he's projecting all of his fears and things onto the doctor, the mysterious doctor here. He has a somnambulant, I guess, Cesare or Caesar, who is in a cabinet, right? So he's in the cabinet. That's the cabinet, and there's Dr. Caligari. There's the title, and he's not really hypnotized, but he commands Cesare to go out and commit murders and kidnappings and things like that. So pretty simple story. And like I said, at the very end, we are going to meet Dr. Caligari, not in his makeup like that with the hat and the dark shadows and eyes and all that kind of stuff. And he'll get it. Now I understand how to cure my patient and so on. And we get a sort of a happy ending, I guess. It's such a cool film to look at, though. I just love the, the light coming in and the shadows and the window all twisted and turned and everything. It's just a real wonder to behold this wonderful look. And remember, movies are in their infancy. They're just really being born. There have barely been feature-length movies for 4 or 5 years by this point. There have hardly been any feature-length movies, more than 2 reelers, which would be 20 minutes. And so off in Germany, they're doing this really crazy film. So this, you probably recognize this. This is also Expressionism. This is Edvard Munch's The Scream. Yes, I'm sure you've seen it. It's in pop culture and illustrations, and it's parodied in, I think, in Home Alone. Kevin puts on some shaving lotion on his face and does that, and it's all over the place. Very, very famous. So that is expressive, right? That's the whole idea, expressive art. And as I said a little bit earlier, it influenced film noir from the 1940s. Here's a wonderful film. I think this is The Killers. Wonderful lighting. And boy, I'll tell you, I sure don't want to see this film in color. Black and white is beautiful, and it's perfect, and it's expressive. And I know I have students that have never seen a black and white film in their life, and they're not sure if they're going to like it, and they're not sure about any of it. And then, of course, you get in, and Chaplin is funny in black and white or in color, and all the whole rest of it. And Frankenstein and Dracula are great, and you kind of forget the whole black and white thing pretty fast, just a few minutes in to the movies. But I'm so glad that some of this film noir, or this film noir is from the 1940s, so I'm so glad that some of this film noir and the horror from the 1930s, Bride of Frankenstein, are done in black and white. They are just really beautiful. And some directors will still work in black and white today. I might have mentioned that earlier, but it's an artistic choice. Studios aren't real happy about it because they are worried that there are a lot of people that won't go see a black and white movie, and they put a lot of pressure on directors not to film in black and white, even if it's a parody of Frankenstein movies, like Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, and he got it in black and white, and I'm sure the studio was freaked out about it and didn't like it at all, but it was a big hit and did just fine. So anyway, Expressionism, or German Expressionism, and film noir from the 1940s. So watch some of the film. You can watch the whole film and write a paper about it if you want, or jump around a little bit, but watch some of it. It's really amazing that the entire film is there on YouTube. So spend a little bit of time and appreciate this really wonderful film. At least look at the different sets jumping through it. All right, next up from Germany, we're going to go east to Russia. And the Russians, they are in the midst of the fervor of revolution. They just had their revolution in 1917. They overthrew the Tsar and Lenin, and came in, and later on Stalin and all that. And they are in the midst of revolutionary fervor. And they are thinking that movies can somehow help support their new government and their new movement and everything. And they start doing some tests and things. And one of them, the guy that did the test, his name is Lev Kuleschev, and he and I've linked to the video too, but and also to a really fun one that Alfred Hitchcock did that's a little bit different, and he's using a totally different material. But what we see here is they would have the man, and notice the man's face doesn't change in any of these 6 pictures. It's as neutral as can be, but they would show the man, and then the soup, and then the man, and they would ask the test audience what they thought, and they said, look at the hunger in his eyes. You can tell clearly he's hungry as he looks at the soup, okay? And he's not even in the same room with the soup, of course. And the next one, right, you can see the sadness. Look at the sadness in his eyes. Oh, goodness, the poor man, and maybe he knows the girl, maybe that's his daughter. And then, of course, I don't know, look at the desire in his eyes with the woman. And so editing has a juxtaposition of images, and we get really 1 + 1 = 3 in essence. We get neutral, and we get soup, and then we get a whole new meaning, And that's what editing does, and the Russians sort of figured it out, but that's what movies are all about. Editing pieces together. They're not all literal. Movies, as we probably know, are shot out of order. There are stuntmen doing those stunts that our famous actors are. So from a close-up, we see the actor, and from a long shot, we see somebody else doing James Bond's jump or Jason Bourne's whatever, and all that kind of stuff. But editing ties it all together, and we believe it. We know that it's not happening that way. We know there are sound stages and blue screens and all that, but editing ties it all together, and we totally believe it. So that is the Kuleschev effect, and Hitchcock does the same thing, only Hitchcock is playing the man, and the first shot of Hitchcock is looking, and the third shot of Hitchcock is smiling, and you'll see it. What he does is he puts a baby or a mother playing with a child, and he looks like he smiles, and obviously he's a kindly man. And in the next one, he cuts he's editing this part apart. He cuts through, and he puts in a pretty girl in a bikini, and we see the man smiling, and then Hitchcock notes that he's a dirty old man. But that's editing, right? That's editing. You can add a different meaning, even to a smile. So, the Russians, Kuleschev effect. Staying with the Russians, we have Sergei Eisenstein, and really one of the great directors in history. And he, and a few others, but he really was sort of an experimenter and discoverer of montage style editing. Basically, we have a theme. We don't have strict continuity or anything like that. He talked about a clash of images. I love that. And that's the revolutionary fervor, I think, coming out. And he wants an emotional response. And what's going on is that Russia is under this new government, and everybody's really excited about it in the early going, before Stalin comes in and purges and starvations and all that, and everybody's ready to take over. And the rest of the world, they're kind of concerned. Maybe this is going to spread to Germany. Maybe it's going to spread to Italy. This revolutionary fervor that the workers will take over, and so on. And the Russians, the revolution really happens in St. Petersburg and in Moscow, and they are a very rural society. Most of the world was pretty rural in the 1920s, 19-teens and 20s, and uneducated and illiterate. And they are thinking, how are we going to get this message out that there's a whole new ball game, right? Everything has changed. How are they going to get that out? And they have loudspeakers in cities. They kind of go in a different direction for radio. Instead of people having individual radios, the Russians are doing it kind of like homeroom, where there's a broadcast to everybody in the country, kind of all at once, because they want to spread the word that, how things are going to be and all of that. And the other thing that they do is they start making these movies to show why this revolution happened. So they're going to show these awful atrocities, and they do it 3 or 4, but really a bunch of times, and showing the awful troops and the awful way things were before the revolution, so that people could get angry, right? They wanted an emotional response. And Russians who are watching Battleship Potemkin are going to be are going to be angry at the way things were and be glad that the revolution happened. Okay, so there is a very famous sequence in this film, Battleship Potemkin, and he did, like I said, he did a couple of others, 10 Days That Shook the World, about the revolution in October of 1917. But Battleship Potemkin centers on a battleship that is at sea, and the men are enlistees, and they are treated very, very poorly by the officer class. And their food is rotten, there are maggots in the meat, and so on, and they are beaten, and it's really awful. And that is mirroring the way society was. The officers, in reality, and I guess metaphorically, are the ruling class. And that's the way a lot of the militaries were in Europe. The officers in Germany and in Italy, and until the revolution in France, would all be royals. They would be royalty. And so even in the military, the royalty are still pushing down the workers, right? So there's really no change. The military, it reflects society all the way around. So that's what's going on here with Potemkin. And the men revolt, and they are greeted in the bay there, I guess, in Odessa, and the people all come out and they're waving and cheering them on, and they're totally behind their revolution, their mini revolution, their mutiny, really. And then the Cossacks come in, and there's a big title card, giant capital letters, Cossacks. And they come in, and they are marching in lockstep, and they've got their guns, and they've got their bayonets, and the people are slaughtered, massacred on the Odessa steps. And it is a wonderful montage. It goes on for a little while, maybe 12 minutes or so. Just cut to a woman, cut to a gun, cut to a boot, cut to a baby carriage, cut to a woman again, right? Just lots of fast edits. And that was very influential on later Hollywood films, very influential. And everybody knew Eisenstein. He came to America, he came to Hollywood. They looked at his movies, people like Louis B. Mayer, people like that. They weren't sure about the communists and all that, but everybody was abuzz about Battleship Potemkin, and other directors, Chaplin, all sorts of people saw Eisenstein and met with him, and he was a very engaging fellow. As it turns out, very interestingly, he went down to Mexico, because Mexico was right having their revolution. Pancho Villa and Emilio Zapata, and so he went down there and he met with the Mexican revolutionaries, and they talked about movies. He made a movie down there in Mexico, and it's very interesting. A lot of people don't know. You wouldn't be thinking about a Russian filmmaker journeying to America and then Mexico. So, and there's a film out about it. The name escapes me right now, but there's a film out about Eisenstein's time in Mexico, which is quite interesting. I've also linked to Potemkin in Hollywood, and it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of parodies of Potemkin, and the best one, you're going to love it, the best one is from the Naked Gun movies. And they're actually parodying the Brian De Palma film Untouchables. And Untouchables, there's a baby carriage in the Untouchables, and there's Elliot Ness and all those people, and there's a shootout, and the baby carriage goes down the steps. That's in the Untouchables. Brian De Palma is paying homage to Eisenstein, and then the Naked Gun comes out, and they do a parody of the homage. Okay, so they're doing a parody of the Untouchables, which is paying homage to Potemkin. Okay, maybe that's too many steps for you. Sorry, but you'll see it. You'll get it. You'll see it, and you'll laugh, and it's a lot of fun. And then another one on the montage, and that is from World Police, and that's a lot of fun too. And they're having a little bit of fun with the montage. So enjoy that. It's a lot of fun. And then come back. So F.W. Murnau, director, German, and Nosferatu from 1922. And this is the very first vampire film. It's actually based on the book by Bram Stoker, the Dracula book by Bram Stoker, but they don't have the rights, so they change all these names, and it's kind of funny. The names are very, very similar. Van Helsing and Harker, and all the names are kind of close, but not quite. There's the Count. What's fun about this film that is so different from all the other vampire movies and the other Dracula movies, and we will see the original sound Dracula movie with Bela Lugosi from 1931 in a future class. But really, most vampires are handsome and seductive. Really, that's kind of the key. And whether it's Twilight or whether it's True Blood or any vampire movie, vampires are almost always handsome and rich because they're so old, they live for so long, they acquire great wealth and well-mannered, and in some of them they have to ask to be invited in. They can't just charge into a house and start sucking blood and all that. And so there's a lot of tropes going on with the vampire films, and we'll talk about it more with Dracula, garlic and shadows and mirrors and all sorts of stuff. And so we'll talk about that more when we get up to Dracula. But here he kind of looks like a bat. He's got these long sort of pointy ears, these long fingers and nails and everything. And yeah, he's a very odd looking guy. So that is Nosferatu, and some of the scenes are going to mirror. We'll look at the same scenes in Dracula with the man coming to Transylvania with the property, and basically Dracula is going to buy a property in London, and he's going to travel to London and so on, right? So both of the stories are based on the same book, and we'll get to look at both sides of those. And there is another fun film. Well, first off, women are attacked in bedrooms, okay? We see that in Dr. Caligari. We see it in Nosferatu and in Dracula and in countless other horror films. So you'll notice that. It's in italics. It will be on the test, just so you know, okay? And like I said, there are lots and lots of vampire tropes, and we'll talk more about them. We'll talk more about them when we get into Dracula as well. There is a very fun film made about 10 years ago called Shadow of the Vampire, and I've linked to the trailer, and it's just really a ton of fun because they are imagining that the actor playing Nosferatu in 1922 Germany is actually a vampire, and he keeps killing people on the movie set. So it's a lot of fun. You might enjoy that. You can watch the trailer and maybe watch the whole film for extra credit, okay, if you can track it down. A ton of fun. Next up, we have F.W. Murnau in America, and the film is Sunrise from 1927, and it won the first Best Picture. It was a co-winner with Wings of the Best Picture Oscar. The complete film is right there online. I usually show the beginning, and I've got it marked out for you in the module, about 15 minutes or so, and then about another 5 minutes, and then another maybe 5 or 6 minutes, something like that. And you're welcome to watch the whole film. But they're doing some real interesting stuff. And I'm not really sure how they're doing it because they didn't have a blue screen or green screen or rear screen back then. And they had to do this matte process where they shoot them and then they put black and they cover up the film. And this is a city with cars and honking and all that. And then it turns into this beautiful pastoral place as they re-fall in love. And so they're doing some pretty interesting effect stuff. Yes, of course, it would be very simple to do today, but in 1927, it's really something. It's, for the most part, a silent film, but I think what is going on is when sound came out, they didn't reshoot all the films, just start all over again and reshoot all the films. They might have done it in a few instances, but not most of the time. But what they do is they add in car horns, crowd sounds, and bells ringing and things like that. So that's kind of interesting. They sort of are blending sound in, but for the most part, there are going to be intertitle cards with dialogue and things like that. It's a wonderful film. There are some long takes, tracking shots, the opening, and if there's a villain, I guess the villain is the woman of the city. They all have these wonderful, just the man, the wife, the woman of the city, and so on, right? They have these sort of iconic names and things. And the city woman, she's wearing nylon stockings, and she's smoking a cigarette, and her hair is in a new, very short, what they call a bob, and she's using her feminine wiles to seduce this poor, dumb farmer. I guess he's a poor, dumb farmer. I hate to call him that, but to leave his wife, or perhaps kill his wife, and move with her to the city. So you'll see that all in the early parts of the film, and then he's going to take her out into a rowboat, and he's supposed to tip the boat over so she drowns, and save himself with reeds that he's going to cut down, like a bamboo sort of thing, and he's supposed to save himself. And of course, he doesn't go through with it and falls in love with his wife. They take this wonderful trolley car from the other side of the lake all the way down into the city. It's all in one continuous take. Again, I'm not exactly sure how they are doing it. It would have been very easy to do in rear screen projection. I'm not exactly sure what Murnau and his team were doing. They built quite a sizable city at the Fox lot. It was 20th Century Fox. At the Fox lot, they built a really big set. I mean, it's like a whole city. They slowly fall in love again, and they get their picture taken, and or a portrait. Yeah, they get the picture taken. They go out dancing. They have dinner. They get some nice clothes and all that sort of thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful film. And so please spend a little bit of time and enjoy it. And so, known for the artistic and very poetic cinematography. Okay, very nice cinematography. Oops, I got tracking shots in there twice. But anyway, the cinematography is really something. Not much of a story, really. But there's a scene in the church where they have gone in to watch another wedding. They just sort of wandered in. And the minister is talking about cherish and love and protect her from all harm to the bride and groom up on the altar there. And the look on his face is just amazing. We see, and he gets it. Tears, just all the acting is in his face. It's just an amazing job that he does. It's really something, really something. So that's in the early part. Watch those scenes. They're really, really nice. Okay, and so Metropolis, also in Germany, from 1927. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I want to go back because he made this film in America. So Fox brought him over. He made it in the U.S., in America. And the lake is Lake Arrowhead. So when you see the lake and everything, that's Lake Arrowhead. And it kind of looks like Europe. I don't know if they built sets or cottages or something like that to look like Germany, I guess, or something like that. But this film was made in the U.S. Nosferatu was made in Germany. And he died shockingly young. I can't remember, but it was an accident. I think he was hit by a car or something like that. And so Murnau did not have a very long career. But between Nosferatu and Sunrise, he had a real remarkable career. Okay, sorry. Back to Metropolis, Germany, 1927. So also on the edge of the sound. This is by Fritz Lang, and he made this in Germany. And then he came to the U.S., and he had quite a long career in the U.S. A lot of film noir, things like that. Wonderful sets. He had visited America before making this film and marveled at New York City with all of its skyscrapers. And that was his inspiration for the Metropolis. And we will see the, flying and the cars. It's all done stop motion. We'll talk about stop motion. That's how they did King Kong and stuff. But the cars are animated, and there are wonderful scenes. There are a lot of versions of Metropolis out there. It's sort of noted for all the versions because some people thought it was too long. And so when it was sent around the world to the rest of Europe and America, it was cut and cut some more and shortened some more, and it's from 2.5 hours or 2 hours and 40 minutes, and then it's cut down to 2 hours and an hour and 45 minutes, something like that. And people had heard about the movie and all that, and really wanted to see the original. And then, of course, World War II got in the way, and the Nazis came in the 30s and all that. So since the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, people have been trying to restore the film. And it's not quite all the way back to its original, but there have been 2 major restorations. And they find footage, and you might say, well, how do they find this footage? Well, part of the way the release process went back then was that they'd send the film to a theater, and then that theater would drive it or send it or take it to the next theater, and they would be told which theater to take it to. And there were a number of films out there. There might be 20 films out there, but those 20 films were going to get shown in 200 theaters or something like that, or 300 or 400 theaters. So at the end of the line, they were told just destroy the film, right? By the time it got up to Alaska or Canada or somewhere way up there somewhere far, they would be told just destroy it. And so they didn't always do that, and they put them in the attic or in the basement or in the whatever, and so on. Okay, I've got to use this point to go off on a slight tangent because there is a really cool film that was made just a few years ago called Dawson Hidden Gold, something like that. And what happened was Dawson was in the Yukon, which is the part of Canada that's right up there near Alaska. It's where the gold rush took place, where Chaplin got his inspiration for the gold rush. And that was the end of the line, and they were supposed to take the films and destroy them. And up at Dawson, they put them in it's like a swimming pool. And they filled it with water for hockey. Of course, they're Canadian, so yeah, they filled it with water for hockey. And some of it, I think, was just buried outside somewhere. Well, all the film basically froze. And it was a really great preservative. All this film frozen in ice. And when it was found and thawed out, it hadn't decayed. So much silent film decayed. And we'll talk about that, I think, in the next class. But lots and lots of old film from the 1920s. It's like if you've ever seen a corroded battery, or really kind of like rust when you get right down to it. Film would just decay. It's chemicals, and the chemicals would break down. And so a lot of film, if it wasn't stored right or transferred to another, a better film stock, later on they developed safety film that worked a lot better. The old original nitrate film was flammable. It would catch on fire, and people that were carrying film around, they weren't allowed on public transportation, or they had to sit on the back of the bus or something like that. It's really kind of interesting. So anyway, they found lots and lots of this old film, and that's how, not exactly in Dawson, but Metropolis was lucky that people found some of the film in attics and garages and somewhere. I think some of it was found in Argentina. And so there are a few versions of it. A number of them are available complete from start to finish on YouTube. And I've linked to kind of a fun one that was done in the 80s that was colorized. Now, they used to hand color film, hand tint film. We know that from Georges Méliès. But this one was done in the 80s, and it's got an 80s soundtrack with David Bowie and Queen and that sort of thing. And it's kind of fun. So I've linked to that one. There are other links. If you're more of a purist, you can find one of the standard versions of Metropolis. But the colorized 1980s soundtrack, lots of electronica, things like that, and it's a lot of fun. And I've put down some times. You got to see the amazing city and the robot Maria. Oh, robot Maria. There we go. Fantastic stuff. What a really cool design. And look how they integrated. There's like metal, and then her gold painted skin, some metal here, skin, and so on. So they really kind of made this very interesting, kind of sexy robot, right? Very influential. You'll see lots of this kind of stuff in anime and things like that. There's some wonderful shows on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it, Robot something or another. But this is really a wonderful design. It's a little Art Nouveau and so on, and it's a fantastic design. So you got to watch the introduction of Robot Maria, and then she. Let me see here. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. So there is an allegory. We've got Maria, and the workers live in the city below, in a hellish existence. Yes, literally and figuratively, down in hell. It's tinted all red in the film, and the richest 1%. Yes, the one. They don't call them 1% in the film, but they're up high above, almost like they're up there on Mount Olympus, looking down on the poor workers of below. And the son of the man that is running things, he's more than a mayor. He's not quite a king. But anyway, the son discovers this world down here. His heart goes out to the workers in the depths, and he falls in love with this woman who is teaching. She's like a teacher. She's teaching the children, and she brings them up to the top of the place where all the young people are frolicking in the sunshine, and says, "Look, children, these are your brothers and sisters." It's very nice, very nice. Look, children, these are your brothers and sisters. It really is current even today. I mean, think of immigration, think of all that. And so our young man, sees her and is immediately smitten by her and follows her back and goes to the factory and is trying to work with the people in the factory and all of that. In the meantime, the girl is kidnapped by the evil man who is running things and taken to the mad scientist and Rotwang. What a great name. The mad scientist Rotwang. And Rotwang puts the girl in one contraption and the robot in the other contraption, and he humanizes the robot. He humanizes the robot. She looks more like a human, right? Like a cyborg or a replicant or something. Westworld, I don't know. And then the robot Maria goes out into the world to cause havoc and cause revolution and seduce the rich men and the nightclub and all of that, right? So it's a lot of fun. I tell you, the movie's a lot of fun. There's religious symbolism running through it. There's a Tower of Babel. There's death. all sorts of stuff. What a fantastic movie this is. And you might just find yourself watching the entire thing. It really is a lot of fun. And it's really got a lot going on. It has a lot going on. So check that out, okay? Check out Metropolis and enjoy all of that. And so 1927 is our transition to sound. And movies, they kind of seem like they take a huge step backwards from Sunrise and from Metropolis to The Jazz Singer. But The Jazz Singer is a talkie. The very first one was a huge hit. And it looks really kind of clunky and kind of old-fashioned. Now, the weird thing about The Jazz Singer, and you'll, depending on how much you look and watch and so on, is that all of the speaking in the movie is subtitled, or actually on title cards. All of the speaking. Only the singing is synced. Only the singing is synced, and all of the talking is done with intertitle cards, except for this scene. And it's 2/3 of the way through the movie. He goes home to visit his mother. He's had a falling out with his father. He wants to be a jazz singer. His father is a very conservative, religious person, a cantor in the Jewish faith, and like some religions, people like the old ways better, and not this dancing and the swaying and the rhythms and all that. And there are still religions today, and it's a choice that men and women shouldn't be dancing together, holding each other close, and things like that. So it's not like it's gone away. There are still people that believe that. I'm not making any judgment or anything like that. And he doesn't think that way. He wants to play the jazz music, like rock or hip hop or anything else. He wants to play the jazz music and be an entertainer. Jackie Rabinowitz turns into Jack Robin, the entertainer. His father throws him out of the house, and he becomes a big entertainer. And now he comes back to visit his beloved mother, and he's going to sing a song, but he's going to talk to her. He's going to talk to her, and that's the first conversation in the movies. It's the first conversation. All the rest of the movie, there are no conversations that aren't titled with text, except for this one. So that's the scene that we have found, and very enjoyable. Al Jolson was a big Broadway star, and on Broadway shows, theater, you can talk to the audience if you want to. You can, hey folks, how did you like that song? You want to hear another? He had a sizable ego, and he would talk to the audience, and how about if I sing another song for you, stuff like that, right in the middle of the play. So he was kind of used to being able to go off script, and so he goes off script a little bit and just starts talking. And I guess they thought it was okay and filmed it and all of that. And then right after he's done talking to his mother, his father bursts in the door, and it goes silent again. It's the weirdest thing. It goes silent again, and the mother says, "Have you no word for your son?" And I always joke in class, no, he doesn't have any word for his son because it's gone silent again. So yes, very, very strange. I don't know what they were thinking about. And in the early movies, they were a little uncertain as to how music would be portrayed. And by that, some of my students have had film classes and things before, and are familiar with the term diegetic and non-diegetic. And basically what that means is, if the music has a source in the movie, then that's one. And if it's just the score that's playing, and the only people that can hear the music is us in the audience, then that's non-diegetic, okay? So, sometimes in the movie, people will sing, they'll play the piano, they'll turn on the radio, who knows what. And other times, there's just the score. So they weren't sure back in 1927 how to address all that. Should we be able to hear music and not the others? And when you watch Dracula, there's no music. There's no music. right? There's no source music, there's no radios or anything like that, and it seems kind of weird. It seems kind of quiet. But other movies from 1931, 1932 does have music. I imagine they had Broadway theater to reference, so maybe in some Broadway theater plays and shows you could hear music. But somewhere along the line, somebody made the decision that movies worked with the score, a score, not just music that people were playing in the film. But this one, they weren't sure. So aside from this one scene here, it's not even spoken. It's not even spoken. Except for that one scene. So this was a difficult transition for Hollywood. It's a big deal, of course, a big deal, a whole different way of doing things. And so there are two other films that I have linked to about the struggle to transition to the sound era. There's Singin' in the Rain, and we will talk a little bit more about Singin' in the Rain when we get to musicals in a few classes. But in the meantime, there's a wonderful scene of the difficult transition to sound. It's not really the musical part of Singin' in the Rain, but I've linked to some of the scenes that talk about the difficulty, and they're funny. They're very funny. MGM's sort of making fun of itself, really, from just 30 years earlier, or 20 years earlier. And so that's from 1952, the classic Singin' in the Rain, and we will come back to that when we do musicals. But there's also The Artist from 2011, the Best Picture winner. It won the very Best Picture. It's silent and black and white, and it won the Best Picture in 2011. It really came out of nowhere. It won some festival awards in Cannes and places like that. And it was so original and so different that it won the Best Picture Oscar, and the lead guy won the Best Actor. Jean Dujardin, I think is his name. And so I've linked to a scene with that, The Artist, the premiere, and then the sound nightmare that he has. Isn't this a wonderful scene? That's her arm. That's her arm right there. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nicely done? It's really an inventive, and it's really a wonderful movie. And so you can check some of those out, or you can watch the whole movie for extra credit. So that we're kind of in that big transition. After this is the test. Okay, so after this class, take the test, and then proceed, right? Then proceed to the next class. Class 5 is class 4, class 5. That's the dividing line. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are test 1. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't remember where, but that would be class 2. 5 through 10? I think it's 5 through 10 is class 2. So anyway, at this point, you should take the first test. You should take the first test at this point. Study your notes and everything. You have to take it right this minute. But study your notes and all that, and take the first test when you're ready. There would be a week between this class and the first test in the regular classroom. So that's the point. Okay, so there I am in my old office. The wallpaper is down and new carpeting has been put in, so I will get a fresh new picture at some point. But there I am at my desk, bidding you farewell. Thank you for joining me, and until we meet again, take care, please.